Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the eSports Report. My name is Jack Dunlop. We just got done talking a lot about Zenith and Smash this past weekend, but there was an even bigger tournament going on for Call of Duty. Now, a lot of people getting hyped about this tournament, you know, after MLG Anaheim. People were really looking forward to the next time we could see the top Call of Duty competition all playing for one prize pool. This weekend there was $30,000 for the first place team up for grabs. So, you know, a lot of teams came gunning. It was out at Gfinity 3 out in London. It was a long trip for some of the American teams. The UK teams are already there and ready to go, or the European teams, I should say, as Vitality is from France. There was a lot of great action this weekend, and on today's show, we're going to break down some of the best games as well as how the top 8 teams wound up placing. So let's start by taking a look at the groups and how things worked out there. Let's first take a look at Group A. Now, Group A, we saw Epsilon, Curse, and Exertus. This was the one group where there were 2 European teams and only 1 North American team. Now, a lot of folks before the weekend thought Curse and Epsilon were going to really fight hard for first place because Curse had been looking really good in the previous lands. But a couple days before the event, it was announced that Tipsy, one of Curse's players, would not be attending due to passport issues, so he was not able to attend. Croster wound up filling his spot, playing that objective role that Curse needed, but it wasn't enough as Epsilon wound up going 2-0 in the group, taking the first seed going into the brackets. Curse got second, and Exertus, the squad that wound up surprising many people last weekend at EGL, wound up going 0-2. Not many people thought that they could move on with this group because Epsilon won the EGL event and beat Exertus in the finals. And Curse, you know, has been looking so solid on land, struggling a little bit in Season 3. So Exertus wound up dropping out there. So Epsilon and Curse moved on from Group A. Now let's take a look at Group B. Group B had 2 of the biggest names in Call of Duty esports here with Team Envy and Optic Gaming. Now, prior to this event, everyone thought that Optic Gaming was probably the second best team overall, with Evil Geniuses beating them out as the best squad in competitive Call of Duty. But what happened this weekend was Optic Gaming wound up losing their matchup versus Team Envy as Envy wound up taking that series 3-0, putting Envy at a 2-0 position, and they as well as beating out the European squad, Team Vitality. And then Optic Gaming wound up taking their series 3-0 versus Vitality, so that put the teams moving on as Envy at 2-0 and Optic Gaming as 1-1, moving into the bracket stage. Vitality with the big name Gotaga and the French nation behind him was not enough to take any of these matches off 2 of the best North American squads. So there's Group B. We got 4 of the teams moving on now. Let's take a look at Group C. This was the group that many people could not choose who was going to move on from. 3 very even teams, as we saw TCM, the European squad, perform quite well at MLG Anaheim. Then we see FaZe, the newer squad that many people are regarding as top 3 in Call of Duty because of just the sheer skill and LAN performances that they've had in the past, was in that group, as well as Optic Nation, the team that really struggled at the X Games. But then when it came to MLG Anaheim, they had to play in the open bracket to qualify for Season 3, and they did just that, taking home the open bracket championship and the $3,000 prize pool for first place there. And now they've been performing quite well so far in Season 3, so many people were expecting a lot from them this tournament. Well, it wound up surprising many people that TCM on their home turf wound up dropping both series, going 0-2 and getting eliminated on day 1, while FaZe wound up going 2-0. Many people thought that they would move on from this group, but really the 2-0 was a surprise to many as they were able to beat out both teams pretty handily. And Optic Nation finished 1-1, looking strong in their S&D, but not able to take that series off FaZe. So now we had FaZe and Optic Nation move on to the bracket stages on Sunday, and our final group was Group D. Now, this group wound up having 2 teams from the X Games as well as Team Infused, one of the few squads from Europe that had to play in and earn their spot this tournament. Team Caliber, obviously, with Theory back on the squad. They've been looking quite good so far in Season 3. They wanted to prove that they were ready for this LAN, and they were going to be back on top now with their roster changes. And finally, Evil Geniuses, the squad that has been running the scene for the past year and a half, wanting to prove that their dynasty still stands true even after a couple shaky performances in the past. They did win MLG Anaheim, but you know, X Games really hurt their ego, and TK wound up doing the same thing to them that they did at the X Games. They took their series off of EG as TK moves out of Group D with the #1 seed at 2-0. Then Evil Geniuses finishes 1-1 after taking their series versus Team Infused, as Infused just really struggled, finishing 0-2 with some very poor stats. I was breaking down all the stats on the teams, and really theirs were some of the poorest. So there you have it for the European teams already out of Gfinity, and it wasn't even the end of day 1 yet. So everyone was looking forward to the big bracket play, though, and that's really what we're going to break down in today's show. We got a lot of great gameplay, guys. Let's take a look at how the bracket wound up being. We wound up having teams drawn, and we had Epsilon versus Optic Gaming in round 1, Evil Geniuses versus FaZe in round 1, TK versus Optic Nation, and Envious versus Curse. An extremely stacked lineup there, as it's now known that Epsilon is probably the best European team, right up there with TCM. Unfortunately, TCM struggled this weekend in Group C with FaZe and Optic Nation there, so Epsilon, coming off of a big tournament win, was ready to prove themselves in this bracket. We saw some other great Season 3 teams, guys. When we come back from this commercial break, we're going to break down the Epsilon versus Optic Gaming matchup. Don't go anywhere.